They say that my son Kim Jong-un is the man of the peace. In fact, the entire population of my country, North Korea, it was definitely not against their will, nominated him to be the Nobel Peace Prize winner just last year. And it's clear to see why. He's a man of the peace because he wants a piece of the United States, a piece of China, and most importantly, a piece of our neighbor, South Korea. I can say at the end of the day, I've been very, very proud of where our son has taken our country. I made North Korea into the military state that it is today, and he has continued so much of my legacy. We're performing more and more nuclear tests, we're doing even more humanitarian disasters, and overall, we're in a much better state than we were a few years ago. But there's just one issue. He hasn't pulled the trigger on military conflicts, but he sure has said to the world that he's threatened to. According to an article from the South China Morning Post, on January 25th of 2020, Kim Jong-un has never actually launched a military attack, but he has said that the nuclear button is on his desk. At that point, because I, Kim Jong-il, wants to increase the amount of North Korea's power in the world today, it is imperative that we ask today's question. Do I puppeteer my son, Kim Jong-un, into starting a military conflict with South Korea? It's very tempting, so the answer is yes. I want to do it for 3 reasons. The first is to show the world how much power North Korea has. The second is to increase the amount of how much we're taking advantage of President Donald Trump's ignorance. And the third is to fulfill my lifelong dream of conquering South Korea. Now, ever since I came into the presidency, I always wanted to rule the world. In fact, according to an article from Science Direct, who did a year-long study of my entire political career, which I'm very flattered by, they noticed that I was the one who put North Korea from a party state, which is like most countries, to one that is fully militaristic, making me a dictator, which is something that I'm very, very proud of. And Kim Jong-un has only continued that legacy, increasing his power and stronghold on North Korea. In fact, an article from the Council on Foreign Relations found on August 19th of 2019 that I was the first one to make North Korea have military tests in the first place. The first 2 tests we had were in May of 2006 and October of 2009. Basically, I put North Korea on the map. And because my goal in life was to increase North Korea's power overall, I want Kim Jong-un to finally pull the trigger. South Korea is one of our biggest rivals on the international stage, and if we can finally use the new nuclear missiles that we've been developing, we can show the people of the entire world that we are ones to be reckoned with. Because according to me, and my logic is of course flawless, the way that you determine whether a country has the highest hegemony is how many nuclear missiles that you use. And so once Kim Jong-un does that, he's going to be able to show the rest of the world that we are the ones with the power, and that we are the ones that are the strong superpower in the world today. Now, one thing that I really love about Kim Jong-un is that he's taking huge advantage of the US's president, Donald Trump. Now, if there's one thing I know about Donald Trump, it's that even if he didn't pass all of his classes, there's definitely one that he paid attention in, and that was his health class, because he knows the value of pulling out. He pulled out of NAFTA, he pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, and he's probably going to pull out of NATO. But there's one thing that he missed, pulling out of negotiations with North Korea. You see, let's get some historical context. According to the American Enterprise Institute, on October 9th of 2018, during my time in the early 2000s, the US would never negotiate with us until we denuclearized. That's why in 2003, with the 6-party talks, I had to denuclearize for 6 grueling months of my life in order to just get negotiations. Luckily, Kim Jong-un is able to do that without even denuclearizing. Our arsenal is building up faster than ever because Donald Trump has already declared victory on the North Korean issue. In fact, he has told the people of the United States that he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize because he has resolved the conflict with North Korea. But little does he know that my son is putting the peace in his hands. Because North Korea is actually developing a lot more nuclear missiles that the US is simply ignoring because they think they've resolved the issue. According to the bulletin on December 9th of 2019, we've developed new submarines that can actually carry nuclear missiles that the US has never seen before. And even though this is public information, they have done nothing to try to defend South Korea against an incoming attack. Which is why right now is uniquely the best time for my son Kim Jong-un to go in and attack North Korea, or South Korea rather, with these missiles. Because the US will simply be defenseless against it and won't be able to help South Korea. And even if the US counterattacks, it probably won't matter anyway. Just like Donald Trump's hairline, it'll probably just go backwards and hit some other country. But the final and most important reason why I want my son Kim Jong-un to finally pull the trigger and conquer our neighbors of South Korea is because it's always been my lifelong goal. Ever since I was just 4 years old and looking at the results of the Korean War all across my country, I always wanted revenge. Throughout my entire political career, I vowed to take over South Korea, but unfortunately, I couldn't do it. In fact, a New York Times article, which is a second-rate news site, said just 3 days after my death, on December 19th of 2011, that in many South Korean textbooks, they depict me as the Red Devil, because I always wanted to conquer them and the man who comes into their house at night and robs them. But I don't want anything much. All I want to do is go into their country, take millions and millions of dollars, kill millions and millions of people, and just have control. It's not really that much to ask. But the thing is, Kim Jong-un will finally fulfill my prophecy if he finally pulls the trigger and does this military conflict. Because I always wanted to control South Korea, it is imperative that Kim Jong-un finally does what I always wanted throughout my entire political career. So finally, I'm going to revisit today's question: do I let my son Kim Jong-un finally create military conflict with South Korea? The answer is overwhelmingly yes. And this is for the 3 reasons I described before. The first is to show the entire world that we are the biggest superpower that exists right now. The second is to continue taking advantage of the ignorance of the United States President, Donald Trump. And the final reason is to finally avenge my lifelong promise to take over the neighbor of South Korea. So while I agree that Kim Jong-un is the man of the peace, he needs to do one more thing, and finally pull that trigger that I had wanted to pull for many, many years. Now, of course, I, as the great leader of North Korea and the man who started it all, will never die out. Which is why I will make sure that my son Kim Jong-un continues my legacy and finally conquers the nation